Welcome to Pragmatic Talks, a podcast and video series where we discuss startups, contemporary digital product development, modern technologies, and product management. This episode is brought to you by Pragmatic Coders in collaboration with ACE, Agile Software Development and Product Management Conference. We believe that everyone should have equal access to knowledge about product development and entrepreneurship, and also everyone should have the opportunity to apply it in pursuit of making our world a better place. Through this series, we aim to create an impact on the future world. In today's episode, we are joined by Büşra Coşkuner, a distinguished product management coach and trainer. Büşra is renowned for her expertise in helping product teams make data-driven decisions and improve product discovery and validation processes. Her innovative approaches have empowered numerous teams to create impactful products that delight customers. In this episode, we delve into the nuances of prioritizing product features, making informed decisions based on data, and the importance of understanding customer needs. Büşra also shares insights on navigating the complexities of product life cycles and optimizing for business impact. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Büşra Coşkuner. Welcome in the next episode of Pragmatic Talks that we are recording at the ACE conference in Krakow in 2024. Today with us, we have brilliant guest, Büşra, who is an expert in product development and product management, with whom I would love to talk today about the prioritization and decision-making in terms of what to develop and what requirements to choose when developing a product. So welcome, Büşra.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question, that is a very wide question and the very open-ended question that I would love to start with, and then we'll move to more into details, is, okay, let's assume that I'm building a product, and how should I decide which features, which requirements to start with, where to start, what to build first, how to make a decision later on, which requirements to choose, very wide topic. Let's start from here.
This is a super wide topic, and the perfect product manager answer will be, it depends, because this is really, really, really wide. Let's start with this point. Every product goes through the product lifecycle curve, or like different stages of the product lifecycle. And depending on the product maturity, it will be really different set of things in general. Don't want to say backlog items or whatever, but in general that you're looking for. So when you're at the very, very beginning, you are rather trying to decide what activities you do in order to figure out what you actually want to build. When the product is more mature, you're trying to rather optimize for either growth or for, if it's a cash cow, how you can continue making cash with your product. So it's very, very specific to the maturity, also to the industry of the product type, like if it's a software as a service or e-commerce, and therefore there's no real answer to that question, to be honest. And we could now talk for an hour or even longer on all the very different options that we could take. In general, as a rule of thumb, as long as you think in a goal-oriented way, and with goal I don't mean KPIs, but more like my current direction. This should be user-oriented goal, which we call outcome, which is basically the user's goal, right? So what are or the customer, depending on B2B or B2C, again, it depends a lot. What is the goal of my target group? What is my target group trying to achieve here? I will slap the person in the face. I will definitely not, but just metaphor. I will get really mad when somebody, or I do get really mad actually, when somebody says something like, oh yes, the person tries to go to the next step. Getting from this page to that page is not their goal. It's a means to an end. What is it that they're really trying to do? So in an online shop, it's obviously not buying something. So it's really not even about this buying activity, right? It's obviously that that they're trying to find something relevant to their current need. And you have to, as a product person, need to figure out what that is. And then help them get it through the action of buying it. Well, even buying is a solution. They could borrow, right? There are rental platforms. They could rent. Like even buying is a solution, is not really the thing that they're trying to do. Depending on the goal that you have in mind, you will need to do something different anyway. I'm a product management trainer and coach, and I do multiple things at the side. One business is that I'm running courses. So when I build my courses, I have a different goal in mind. Then I have a matcha business in Switzerland. I sell matcha, then with my matcha business, right? I'm right now working also on the software as a service for copywriting. That has a completely different goal. And they are all in a different life cycle. Like with the SaaS product, my main goal is learning. When my main goal is learning, then I will prioritize those activities first that will help me learn most about my part of the goal, target group. Maybe once I know most about my target group, maybe my next learning goal will be the problem space. Once I think I have learned enough, my goal will change. My goal will be, okay, figure out what's the best combination of the problem space and target group and what is the good solution for that. My goal changes based on what's next. And because my goal changes, the way how I choose what to do next changes as well. So again, when you're early in your journey, then this happens more frequently and faster. When you're in the growth stage, or even later when the product is pretty mature, these changes don't happen so quickly anymore, right? So you have pretty stable goals for like some stable timeline. And then also the type of goal might be different. What I always advocate for, and I know this is in some companies this is a really ideal scenario, but it will never happen. So I'm aware of that. So reality looks a bit different. What I always advocate for is start from the customer and figure out what their goal is, their main goal, and then figure out what the behaviors are that take them to that goal, or what they should be so that you can help them actually achieve that.
Always start with the customer. Always start with their need, especially start with talking to your customers. I think that's universal, and regardless which stage you are, it's always good to talk to the customer.
The farther you're away from your customers, the more difficult will it be for you to be successful.
What do you mean by you? It's like a product manager or
as a company?
As a company. So should everyone in the company be involved in this kind of discussion, or maybe just specific roles?
It depends. Like when you're a startup, so I mentioned the software as a service product is something that I built together with a friend. My matcha business is something that I run together with my husband. And the course thing is completely my own stuff. But then when I was employed back then, I would have a team, right? So when I was working at Doodle, when I started there, we were 35 people. So it was easier to have this exchange and talk about things that would even spread automatically in the company. And it's fine. But then we scaled, and within 2 years or so, we were about 100 people. And there you don't have those short communication lines anymore. Then the people who are involved changed. So basically then you start having those product development teams, or I like to call them product teams, because it's not about development, it's about the whole creation. You have those teams, those cross-functional teams, and then it's a matter of which roles you have, but definitely a matter of the responsibilities of the people. So when you have a product manager, together with a product designer, together with a tech lead, for example, that's the perfect kernel, let's say, of the team that goes out and figures these things out, right? The one thing that we also advocate for to do, to bring in those different views and figuring out what to build, actually.
So let's assume that we have list of ideas that we want to implement, and let's say that we already have some product, we are already on production, we have some users, we have this list of ideas. How to choose which of them to start with, or how to filter those ideas, or sort them out, how to better decide what to do next, especially like in the startup environment when we have limited budget, or even in the corporate world where we usually have limited time, more than budget even, and some deadlines. So where to start, how to figure it out?
There are, of course, different techniques how you can do that.
Which one is your favorite?
I will not do any names dropping because I do not have any favorite. again, goals thinking, right? Back to first principles. I'm always a fan of starting with hypotheses and in a first principles way. So again, it depends. For example, data heavy environment versus not data heavy environment, right? So what's your hypothesis on what is happening right now? Like how does your product perform in which part? And what is your goal? Again, goal oriented, right? And once you know what your goal is, let's say hypothetically, you're building a new product and you've just launched. You just introduced a paywall and you see number of users go down. In the first place, it looks like, oh shit. No, but this is normal. You have to understand once people need to pay for it, you only get those people who really see value and want to continue working on it. And now you can create your hypotheses about what's happening. So either like you have to look into the data, right? So what's the conversion rate from trial to paid, for example? Or how many did we really lose? If we end up with having only 0.5% of users than before, then we might be in big trouble. And now you start to hypothesize, okay, maybe the price is too high. Maybe the places where we have, where we show the paywall are the wrong places. Maybe the value isn't, like the overall value isn't good enough. So you start to hypothesize. And once you have these hypotheses and your goal and the analysis of what you think is happening, then you can decide and filter out everything. You pick the one where you think this is probably what's happening. And every idea that does not help you fix this one issue or test this one hypothesis is out. So I'm an advocate of know what you're trying to do or trying to test, trying to learn, right? That's your goal. And then filter out everything that does not fit into it. And then the question becomes, of course, where do these ideas come from? Anything where people said, like, I believe this is going to be it, so let's build that, without anything, like really just a good breakfast or something like that. You need to find more data points, more evidence anyways that says, yeah, let's, build it, right? So, and if you don't have it, you have to dig deeper to understand whether you should build it, really. But anything that has some sort of a real channel where it came from. Another example at Doodle, we were building new products and we were in frequent feedback loops with our users. Anything that came from there, most of that was, of course, feature requests. So what we did is we built something that a hypothesis heat map. So basically a feature that would be requested from multiple users wouldn't be the feature that we would build. We would look into it, which means what's happening? Is there something that is not working well? What do we have to fix? And then find out if that feature that they're requesting is the right feature or if we should build something else in order to fix that problem that is behind the feature request, right? At the same time, sometimes it's about our own goals. For one of the products that we have launched that I was responsible for, we were wondering why our users don't invite their guests into the Doodle system so that the whole scheduling happens in the Doodle system, but they're rather sending the links out. And there was a very, very small feature request at the bottom of our list, which was asking for a text field to customize a message. This sounds like a thing. And because it's so easy to build, we were like, let's just build it and see what happens, right? So you don't have to test everything. It was easy to build, but also very easy to revert. If it doesn't work, we just take it out. And boom, we doubled the number of people who would invite others into the poll instead of sending out the link. These are just examples to explain, like it can have different dimensions of looking at the same idea list and also advocating for not just starting from the ideas, but actually trying to figure out what's really happening and what is the goal that we're trying to achieve.
The goal comes first. thanks to the, knowing what the goal is, what the job to be done is, we can filter out all of the requirements, at least at this stage, filter out the requirements that are not fitting into that goal that we are currently focused on, because I think that's also important, to be focused on one goal at a time at least, or limit this number of goals to the minimum, and focus on this goal and eliminate everything else, or just put it on the bottom of the backlog and maybe or may not come back to them later on. We limited this number, and then what I understand is to from what you are saying, is to actually find out the things that are maybe like a low-hanging fruits, like the last one that you mentioned, like something that is easy to be built, and we don't need to test it, we don't need to interview more users, we don't need to collect data, because it will be easier to test it, easier to actually implement it and release it and see if it works. That's one approach for things that are easy to do. For more complex things, you recommend to find more data.
Evidence, data, insights, qualitative, quantitative. Yes. One thing that I would, however, maybe change in your summary is, I'm not advocating for finding the low-hanging fruits. And I actually believe that the low-hanging fruits are a little bit blockers for us, because we have learned, like in business school or whatever, we have learned, look for the low-hanging fruits because these are the ones that will bring us a lot of money fast. Again, it depends. Especially when you're early with the product, you actually want to ignore the low-hanging fruits and you want to find the big chunks. It can be a completely new feature for your product. It can be an improvement of of your existing product. It can be a completely new product that is supposed to push the main product. So there are different ways of solving the impactful thing that you have just found, right? So it's the job to be done of the user, or the goal, or the outcome, or however you want to call it. It's all jargon, right? So basically, the way you solve it is a separate discussion to what you're actually focusing on. And what you're focusing on, especially when you're early, is the big stuff, right? The thing that makes bang and makes everyone look at you.
Big stuff, but what about the risk? So the most risky things first, or maybe not building the riskiest things, but testing or validating or looking for more evidence to the most risky things at the beginning? Or
if you think that this is going to be the most impactful thing, but at the same time it's big as in complex and difficult and risky, then this is also your most risky assumption that you want to de-risk and find evidence whether you should really continue thinking about this at all, right? It's all it depends decision, right? So if there is something else that you think, like if it's impactful but easy to build and without a lot of risk, there are two ways. Either you really build it, or you try to figure out why you think it's so low risk stuff. So if it's big and impactful, can it really be of low risk? Maybe yes, right? And then it's fine.
And maybe no one ever noticed that or something like this. Yeah.
You never know. So, but in general, the rule is you try to find the impactful stuff, and then if that is also risky, then you want to make sure you're not shooting your knee or your foot or wherever.
Great advice. Okay, finding more evidence. How to find more evidence? And of course, it depends. But what are the best ways or the good ways? Let's talk about good practices, not best practices. Good practices to find more evidence about what we are doing.
So first thing is about this it depends thing. So if it's small and if your gut feeling says that might be something, it can have a big impact, but it looks like it's pretty easy to build and easy to revert, so the risk is really, really low, try it out. If it's something very, very big, you want, and as in very risky, if it's something very risky, you want to make sure that you have multiple checkpoints to gather evidence. like experiments, right? So when we say test, then we actually mean experiments to gather some input, to learn from them and to understand the issue better, the problem better, the outcome better, the potential solution better. But we really do it step by step. So there are lots of experiment types, but in the end, they all kind of boil down to some sort of a mix of qualitative input through interviews or surveys. Some people see surveys as a quantitative input. For me, it's still qualitative because surveys are like still don't really tell you so much about numbers, but more about if you're setting them up in a good way, about intentions. But you start with this kind of low evidence type thing. So I like to distinguish between discovery and validation. So experiments to learn versus experiments to confirm. And first we want to discover and learn about the problem space or the target customer or whatever is risky about it, right? So we want to learn about it. Can we see any causation between X and Y? Correlation is something that we can see in data, but causation is real difficult if you don't have a data scientist and the right setup for that.
Yeah, and right data and right experiments.
Exactly. And then from there, we can move on to some types of prototyping, right? It might be a paper prototype, maybe wireframing, like first low fidelity, then maybe high fidelity, fine, but like some sort of prototyping. Legal serious play is also some sort of prototyping, right? And to really understand if we got it right and if what we have in mind somehow resonates. But it's still low evidence, right? And then we slightly move forward to experiment types that help us validate, like things like, okay, if this idea resonates, would you pay for it? Would you sign a letter of intent? Would you help me get a warm intro to your manager? Would you spare some more time and look at another iteration? Like anything that sounds like commitment, right? Time is commitment, money is commitment, referrals are commitment, any type of commitment. And then we move further and actually build some stuff. Again, can still be just a clickable prototype. Or we have no-code tools by now. We can use them, right? So just make sure that the core value is delivered, or in a way of manually delivering it. There are experiment types like Wizard of Oz or Concierge that make sure that you do stuff manually. In the first one, people don't see that you're doing it manually. In the second one, they know and see that you're doing it manually, but you deliver it manually, fine. So then you continue learning. You are still learning while you're confirming. Right? You confirm that the value proposition is the right one, but at the same time, you are learning the details about your offer, what you need to tweak, what is working well, what is not working well, what is resonating, what not. And then you can go build it. But again, this was like a very general description, right? So it, again, depends on the type of product you're working on and so on and so forth, on what you can do. And anything that is in between, between no risk and high risk, anything that is in between, you try to find the balance, understanding like how many experiments do you really need to learn and confirm. Maybe you have learned enough and you only need to confirm. That's kind of a balance that you have to find.
I've been watching your presentation today here at ACE conference, and I strongly recommend it to everyone, especially one slide where you shown the table with some criterias like the impact that you already mentioned and few other criterias. And then in the last column, there was the multiplier that all of the other things like ratings like from 1 to 10 in each category. And then in the last one, there was a multiplier of the confidence level. And I think this is something that you are just talking about right now, that the more confidence you have in something, and even if it's not so impactful, but it is at least somehow impactful and it's not so difficult to be done, and you have high confidence level, then sometimes it will have like a better, it's called a score at the end of the day. And this high score will help you as a product manager to decide that maybe this requirement, this solution is something that is worth to look at or to build first, and what to decide. So could you maybe even tell us more about this confidence level?
Yeah, sure. So the slide that I showed you was an example of ICE scoring, impact, confidence, effort. So impact is something that you have to define. What does impact mean at all? Right? So so you have to define that in your company, what it actually means. Is it business impact? Is it impact on the customer behavior? How do we actually really measure impact? Because a score is a score, but you need something that actually defines what it really means. And then the confidence level is exactly actually like directly linked to the evidence that you have. If it's an anecdotal evidence, oh, in this company that I worked in the past, we had XYZ. Let's build it here too. There it worked well. I'm sure it will work here as well. This is anecdotal. Only because it worked there doesn't mean it's going to work for you here as well. So therefore, your confidence level cannot be really high. So anything that we do that creates real market feedback increases your confidence level. Anything that is more like internal stuff is actually zero confidence. Like it's only opinions. One is maybe a more formed opinion, an opinion by a more experienced person or whatever, but it's still an opinion. Even like doing a competitive analysis, seeing that all the competitors have it, we have to have it too, is a sign. And maybe it's like some medium confidence. Okay, if everyone has it, like why don't we have it? Let's consider it. But the main point is even not the score in the end. Like even if we expect some mediocre impact and are quite confident about it and it's easy to build, it's your decision. In the end, you have to make a call and it's all a bet. It's a bet on that feature that it's going to deliver what you have expected. In that moment, you need that kind of a feature that mediocre is good enough, right? And you expect it to be, then go build it. But if you say like, no, we don't have time or resources or the willingness to spend anything on anything mediocre, then you still reject it, even though the score might be high. So the scores shouldn't be something that you attach yourself too much to, but they are just another information channel for your decision making, what to build.
What do you think about the situation in which the founder or the product manager fall into that they are testing everything and they are paralyzed by all of the uncertainty that they have, all of the the things that they do not know yet, and instead of just delivering something for a couple of weeks, they are testing, experimenting, and actually at the end of the day do not deliver anything. And I've seen it a couple of times.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. I've seen it a couple of times. I always thought that, when I would be building my product, I will never get there. And after 2 or 3 months of building my own product, guess what? I was there. So, and I needed a person from the outside of our team who came and see what we are doing and ask like 2 or 3 questions, such as like, okay guys, how is it bringing you closer to your goal? Or what is your goal? How it's bringing you closer to that goal? And we were like, oh no, it's not moving us closer. Yeah. And
wait, you answered your question.
Okay. So
the best thing that you can do is really time box it. Just like in a technical spike, right? So we time box that. There is a reason why we do that. And when we time box analysis, because we don't want to get into paralysis, then it helps us actually shift our mindset in a way that we ask ourselves, what do we really need to learn? We have this so much time, maybe a week, maybe 2. What do we really want to learn? What do we really need to learn? It's the build, measure, learn cycle. Actually, it starts with learn. What do we want to learn? Okay, great. We want to learn this. How do we measure that? How do we know if we learned what we want to learn? We need to measure this. Okay, what's the smallest thing that we can do, which is the build part, in order to measure this so that we can learn that? And when you think it this way, it's not a guarantee. It's just a help to not get into this situation too often. I think everybody gets in this situation. We were in this situation as well, right? With the new product that I was describing at Doodle. I was like, okay, we need to understand this and that better. And at one point, our CPO was like, same thing, right? Let's launch. What do we really want to learn? We want to learn if this is valuable enough for users that they would, cross that line. And we cannot learn it if we don't launch. Launch it as it is. It already offers the main value, the core value of what we had in mind, and we will see if the core value resonates.
Measuring things. What to measure?
Everything.
Everything.
No.
And then spend most of your time on analyzing those data.
different type of analysis paralysis, right?
Then you are not making a decision, because if you will move this metrics here, then this metrics goes down, so you cannot do this, and you need to revert that. Yeah.
So again, it's all about goals, right? So when we want to decide what we want to measure, we need to understand, again, now different angles. So one thing that we need to look at is, what's the core value of the product? And then what are the core actions that lead to the core value? What is the happy path? And here we already have like some inputs that can help us understand what we need to measure, like which steps to measure. And when you know which step to measure, you usually also know what to measure. And then the question is, okay, but what are not so happy paths? Getting every corner case is difficult, and you don't want that. But what you want is you want to understand what is really happening in your product. You can start with really tracking a lot of things. What I advise teams now is that they do a cleansing every now and then. So basically, checking in their tools, are there events that are not fired at all, or just very rarely, then get rid of them. Clean it up, remove it. I had one team where we were able to see that they jump from the card to a completely random page, and that was a pattern. And the discussion was, what should we do now? And we looked at that random page, and it contained some information that would basically create trust. So imagine you're a new user for a shop, and the shop was completely new, and you don't know if you can trust this shop or not. So you want to buy, right? Or you hesitate and want to check if you can trust this shop. So they would go to that specific page that would share some information about the company and so on and so forth, and that looked completely broken. So zero trust here, right? So of course they would abandon the cart then. What we did was fixing that page, and once we saw, okay, now this weird pattern behavior doesn't happen anymore, or is quite normal, as in, okay, after that, like looking that page up, they usually go back to the cart. It really fixed itself after that page was fixed. We said, okay, guys, your decision, but now it's time that now that you see that everything is going okay, you can also remove it. Right? So find those anomalies and then figure out if it's still an anomaly and you really still need to track it or not. So that's the tracking aspect of metrics. The other part of metrics is the business aspect of metrics. And here it's important that we, as product teams, make sure that we can connect our success to business success, because otherwise everything that we do is a hobby, to be honest. And here is the thing of there are different methods and frameworks that help you do this, such as KPI trees, such as, I love impact mapping for that, for example, that immediately connects or directly connects business goals with user outcomes and helps you eventually find the features you want to build. And in this map, you can, once you have an impact map, you can put metrics and be like, oh, we need to measure this. Here's a metric that we need to track, right? And you can do that very, very nicely with an impact map. But any sort of method that helps you make this connection, build this connection between business goals and the product goals as in hopefully outcomes because we're customer centric, hopefully. Anything that builds this connection, hopefully. And if not, you should think about it. There's a thing called customer centricity. Anyways, that's my Berliner sarcasm. Anything that helps us connect those dimensions, those levels, is considered to be a success driver, because this way we can prove that our work helps or not. But then we know what we should not focus on, where we should not spend money on. Pirate metrics. I love pirate metrics. They are so easy, and they help you really connect those worlds, right? When I say pirate metrics or customer journey maps, I really mean not funnels, but real maps, right? So not a linear thing. It's a map that flows, like the way how people use your product and how the one leads to the other. Like what part of your product is the activation part, or can users experience the activation part, and what part of your product shows that this is retention, right? So kind of see it as a flow. But these maps help you totally fine to figure out what's happening in your product. That will then, when you find the happy path, or not the happy, but those paths that lead to the conversion, the core action, when you find those and fix those, improve those, then you can show the connection to the business goals, right? And therefore, that part of the metrics topics is also important to understand, that we really need to understand or create the connection to the business. Hopefully actionable, but because I don't have anything that I can draw on, I hope it was not too abstract.
But I think that everyone who will be more interested more, then they could watch your presentation from today as well, and they could definitely find other materials, other presentations that you gave in the past, also available in the internet. So that's great. Okay, last but not least, what about the technology that is changing right now? What about the things such as, I don't want to talk about AI only, of course, but things are changing, or actually has changed in the last, let's say, 10 years. Like I remember that 10 years ago, building a product required a lot of people involved, like a bunch of developers, engineers, who were building stuff for a long time, like 1 or 2 years before things get done and gets to production. Right now, pretty the same systems, platforms are built by the team of 3 to 5 people in the 6 to 7 months. That only shows that things are built faster, so this feedback loop is much shorter than it used to be, and it's getting shorter with every new invention. Things are speeding up. How do you foresee the future of product management in this context?
This is a super interesting question. And funny enough, 2 weeks ago, there was a craft conference and I gave a talk about that. Ta-da!
I haven't watching it yet because most probably it's not even released, but...
I'm not sure if it was recorded, to be honest. So if anyone wants to see that talk... yeah.
Sorry, next time.
Next time, you have to invite me, kind of. My view on that is... I'm coming here from the business perspective, okay? So I know developers say like, no, it's not going to replace our jobs. So it's so stupid. It's not even intelligent. Why do we even call it intelligent? It's not. It's just an LLM. Yeah, it's just an LLM today. It's only 1.5 years ago that OpenAI released it to the public. And look what we are doing with it today. I mentioned my SaaS for copywriting. The core value of that, the core feature runs with an LLM. And I built it initially completely on my own with a no-code tool, an LLM, before I asked my friend to help me. So where's the developer that I needed to build it? I didn't. Now I have Timothy, and he is the product engineer in our team. Makes way more fun than building it alone, and he can obviously make way more complex connections today than I could do it on my own with no code and AI. However, I believe as long as you have something extra than just coding, you're going to have a bright future, I believe. You have to figure out what that extra is, but you have to have that extra. And now the business perspective on this is this. Oh, now that we can do more in the same time, I have the option either to keep my team as it is and we do more in the same time, or I save costs and keep, I don't know, only X% of my staff and we build the same in the same time with less people. It depends on the manager, what they want and what they're trying to achieve to make the one or the other decision. It doesn't matter if LLM can not do it today. The system, however it's going to look like in the end, will do it tomorrow. Maybe not LLM only, but in a system. And the way that we are now getting feedback loops way faster because we're faster on the market, if you ask me, is something incredibly valuable because we want to have fast feedback in order to understand fast if we should stop, continue, or pivot. At the same time, I blame ourselves as humans that we insisted and we keep insisting for so long to code something before we release it to get feedback. So we could do it without coding, get feedback early on without coding, and we could still be fast.
True. This is something that actually, I have exactly the same in my mind, and not necessarily only because of AI, LLMs, and this kind of stuff. I see this technology progress, even, the programming language frameworks, like programming tools, not necessarily AI itself. All of those things speeded up the product development in the last decade. Not just the AI. AI is just, the last 1.5 years, and in programming, maybe the last year only. And it's moving forward very, very fast. I wouldn't even try to guess what we'll be talking about in the next 2 years in terms of the AI and creating new products, but also, no code and this kind of stuff as well. Maybe a little bit philosophical, but it's not necessarily just philosophical because we already have a data to support this kind of theories.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like it that we can have feedback so fast because in the end, when we build product, it's about this, right? It's about understanding if it resonates in the market. And the market is the combination of our target group, maybe geographical region or whatever, the industry, the competitors in this field that we want to move, right? It's a combination of multiple actors and criteria. That's the market. And if we can get feedback from the market early on, meaning not only customer feedback, but also we make a move in the market, how will the competitor react to that? That's another piece of information, right? Will they get in panic mode like Google did when OpenAI released ChatGPT? Or will they stay actually totally calm and there's no harm, right? This is also a signal to everyone else in the market what's going to happen, right? And these are valuable and very important progression in the tech market, in the tech scene. But as you say, it's with anything that's been happening the last 10, 20 years, right? It helped us to get feedback faster. And that's good. We want that.
That's good. And even, like other things, you mentioned market research and checking the market. Recently, we at our company, we created a market research tool, AI market research tool that is simple LLM that is just, place there your idea, answer a few questions, and you get an answer about your competition, market size, other things. And those things used to take us like a week or two to actually find out. Right now, it's just a matter of seconds.
Yes,
not even
minutes.
This
is amazing, and this is super cool.
and of course, there is some small level of hallucination from one and then once upon a time, but most of the information that is there is pretty valid. Even for my product that I'm building, my startup that I'm building after hours, I was like, what could I expect? Just an AI that would be stupid. At the end of the day, actually, the result was exactly almost the same as we figured out before during our, long time spent on the market research. But what the AI did better was the competition analysis, and it provides me more competitors than I ever found before. So that was actually, something that, wow.
Yeah. And of course, then like today, definitely there needs to be a human to check the results of if they're maybe super stupid or even a lie, right? And then we have the whole discussion about intellectual property and so on, right? We have these problems today, but we will fix them. We will fix them, and then what, right? Another example, I had joined David Bland's course like 2-3 weeks ago or so, where he shared his ChatGPT prompts that are supposed to help you generate hypotheses to experiment then on the viability, feasibility, and desirability aspects. And the assumptions that ChatGPT gave back were really good. I mean, in the end, we came up with almost all of the same assumptions. There were like 2 or so that were new to me, and that I liked. But this thing, as you said, did it in seconds. And we, my friend and I, we spent like a couple of at least hours to do that, to think about the hypotheses, plus all the things that come like after that meeting, right? So, oh yeah, there's another assumptions. And then after that meeting, like, oh yeah, there's another assumption. Let's also put this one on the top of our deck, and so on and so forth, right? And this thing did it in seconds.
Things are changing, and we are living in the really interesting times. Okay, so thank you very much. If you could also tell to people where they could find you, how to find you in the best way, where to find your knowledge that you are sharing with others, and how to find you and how to contact you.
Sure. The best way you can find me is on LinkedIn. Connect with me however you prefer. And there I share a lot of practical tips and tricks regularly, because that's really my goal. I want to make it easier. I want to make sure that abstract product theory is more tangible and practical. And that's what I share.
Thank you. Thank you very much for today's discussion, and thank you to all of you for watching it. And I strongly recommend you and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss out any new episodes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pragmatic Talks is delivered to you by Pragmatic Coders, the first choice software development partners for startup founders. Be sure to catch all new episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast channels. And if you are thinking about building your own startup or struggling with product development, contact us and find out what we can do together.